The Day of Miracles by Ginzberg. Jacob's journey to Haran was a succession of miracles. The first of the 5 that befell for his sake in the course of it was that the sun sank while Jacob was passing Mount Moriah, though it was high noon at the time. He was following the spring that appeared wherever the patriarchs went or settled. It accompanied Jacob from Beersheba to Mount Moriah, a 2 days' journey. When he arrived at the holy hill, the Lord said to him, "Jacob, thou hast bread in thy wallet, and the spring of waters is nearby to quench thy thirst. Thus thou hast food and drink, and here thou canst lodge for the night." But Jacob replied, "The sun has barely passed the 5th of its 12-day stages. Why should I lie down to sleep at so unseemly an hour?" But then Jacob perceived that the sun was about to sink, and he prepared to make ready his bed. It was the divine purpose not to let Jacob pass the site of the future temple without stopping. He was to tarry there at least 1 night. Also, God desired to appear unto Jacob, and he shows himself unto his faithful ones only at night. 1:31. At the same time, Jacob was saved from the pursuit of Esau, who had to desist on account of the premature darkness. 1:32. Jacob took 12 stones from the altar on which his father Isaac had lain bound as a sacrifice, and he said, "It was the purpose of God to let 12 tribes arise, but they have not been begotten by Abraham or Isaac. If now these 12 stones will unite into a single one, then shall I know for a certainty that I am destined to become the father of the 12 tribes." At this time the second miracle came to pass. The 12 stones joined themselves together and made one, which he put under his head, and at once it became soft and downy like a pillow. It was well that he had a comfortable couch. He was in great need of rest, for it was the first night in 14 years that he did not keep vigils. During all those years passed in Eber's house of learning, he had devoted the nights to study. And for 20 years to come he was not to sleep, for while he was with his uncle Laban, he spent all the night and every night reciting the Psalms. 1:3. On the whole it was a night of marvels. He dreamed a dream in which the course of the world's history was unfolded to him. On a ladder set up on the earth with the top of it reaching to heaven, he beheld the 2 angels who had been sent to Sodom. For 138 years they had been banished from the celestial regions, because they had betrayed their secret mission to Lot. They had accompanied Jacob from his father's house thither, and now they were ascending heavenward. When they arrived there, he heard them call the other angels, and say, "Come ye and see the countenance of the pious Jacob, whose likeness appears on the divine throne, ye who yearned long to see it." And then he beheld the angels descend from heaven to gaze upon him. He also saw the angels of the 4 kingdoms ascending the ladder. The angel of Babylon mounted 70 rounds, the angel of Media 52, that of Greece 180, and that of Edom mounted very high, saying, "I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High." And Jacob heard a voice remonstrating, "Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the uttermost parts of the pit." God himself reproved Edom, saying, "Though thou mount on high as the eagle, and though thy nest be set among the stars, I will bring thee down from thence." Furthermore, God showed unto Jacob the revelation at Mount Sinai, the translation of Elijah, the temple in its glory and in its spoliation, Nebuchadnezzar's attempt to burn the 3 holy children in the fiery furnace, and Daniel's encounter with Bel. 1:36. In this, the first prophetic dream dreamed by Jacob. 1:37, God made him the promise that the land upon which he was lying would be given to him, but the land he lay upon was the whole of Palestine, which God had folded together and put under him. And the promise continued, "Thy seed will be like unto the dust of the earth. As the earth survives all things, so thy children will survive all the nations of the earth. But as the earth is trodden upon by all, so thy children, when they commit trespasses, will be trodden upon by the nations of the earth." 138. And furthermore, God promised that Jacob should spread out to the west and to the east, a greater promise than that given to his fathers Abraham and Isaac, to whom he had allotted a limited land. Jacob's was an unbounded possession. 139. From this wondrous dream Jacob awoke with a start of fright, on account of the vision he had had of the destruction of the temple. He cried out, "How dreadful is this place! This is none other but the house of God, wherein is the gate of heaven through which prayer ascends to him." He took the stone made out of the 12, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it which had flowed down from heaven for him. And God sank this anointed stone unto the abyss, to serve as the center of the earth, the same stone, the Eben Shetia, 141, that forms the center of the sanctuary, whereon the ineffable name is graven, the knowledge of which makes a man master over nature, and over life and death. 142. Jacob cast himself down before the Eben Shetia, and entreated God to fulfill the promise he had given him, And also he prayed that God grant him honorable sustenance, for God had not mentioned bread to eat and raiment to put on, that Jacob might learn to have faith in the Lord. Then he vowed to give the 10th of all he owned unto God, if he would but grant his petition. Thus Jacob was the first to take a vow upon himself 143, and the first, too, to separate the tithe from his income 144. God had promised him almost all that is desirable, but he feared he might forfeit the pledged blessings through his sinfulness 145, and again, he prayed earnestly that God bring him back to his father's house unimpaired in body, possessions, and knowledge 146, and guard him, in the strange land whither he was going, against idolatry and immoral life, and bloodshed 147. His prayer at an end, Jacob set out on his way to Haran, and the third wonder happened. In the twinkling of an eye he arrived at his destination. The earth jumped from Mount Moriah to Haran. A wonder like this God has executed only 4 times in the whole course of history 148. The first thing to meet his eye in Haran was the well whence the inhabitants drew their supply of water. Although it was a great city, Haran suffered from dearth of water, and therefore the well could not be used by the people free of charge. Jacob's sojourn in the city produced a change. By reason of his meritorious deeds the water springs were blessed, and the city had water enough for its needs. Jacob saw a number of people by the well, and he questioned them, "My brethren, whence be ye?" He thus made himself a model for all to follow. A man should be companionable, and address others like brothers and friends, and not wait for them to greet him. Each one should strive to be the first to give the salutation of peace, that the angels of peace and compassion may come to meet him. When he was informed that the bystanders hailed from Haran, he made inquiry about the character and vocation of his uncle Laban, and whether they were on terms of friendly intercourse with him. They answered briefly, "There is peace between us, but if thou art desirous of inquiring further, here comes Rachel the daughter of Laban. From her thou canst learn all thou hast a mind to learn." They knew that women liked to talk, wherefore they referred him to Rachel 149. Jacob found it strange that so many should be standing idle by the well, and he questioned further, "Are you day laborers? Then it is too early for you to put by your work. But if you are pasturing your own sheep, why do you not water your flocks and let them feed?" 150 They told him they were waiting until all the shepherds brought their flocks thither, and together rolled the stone from the mouth of the well. While he was yet speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for Laban had no sons, and a pest having broken out shortly before among his cattle, so few sheep were left that a maiden like Rachel could easily tend them. Now, when Jacob saw the daughter of his mother's brother approaching, he rolled the great stone from the mouth of the well as easily as a cork is drawn from a bottle, the 4th wonder of this extraordinary day. Jacob's strength was equal to the strength of all the shepherds. With his 2 arms alone, he accomplished what usually requires the united forces of a large assemblage of men. He had been divinely endowed with this supernatural strength on leaving the Holy Land. God had caused the dew of the resurrection to drop down upon him, and his physical strength was so great that even in a combat with the angels he was victorious. 152. The 5th and last wonder of the day was that the water rose from the depths of the well to the very top. There was no need to draw it up, and there it remained all the 20 years that Jacob abode in Haran. 153.